The Chesapeake Bay, the crown jewel of coastal Virginia, has been utilized as a passageway since the arrival of Native Americans. The Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel connects Virginia Beach to the eastern shore of Virginia. However, the bridge tunnel was not open to traffic until 1964. Prior to the bridge tunnel, the only way across the bay was by ferry boat. This is the story of the Virginia Ferry Corporation, the reason the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel was built.
Which vessel did you best like and why?
Myself, the best vessel I liked was the Princess Anne.
I already knew that.
I had a feeling for that boat just like I would my wife, really. I mean, I just knew the boat. I knew where everything was, and I knew how to work everything.
Which did you like the least?
The North End.
I'm not surprised at that either. Which of the steamers was the fastest?
Well, I'd been told that the Delmarva was, and I've also heard the Pocahontas, so I don't really know.
And Cap Rock, you told me one time it depended on the engineer.
Oh yes, I remember an engineer that I worked with. His name was Buddy Shackelford, and he was an engineer, steam engineer. And I'm told that the way he used to get a lot of the most speed out of one of the ferries was that he was a lot of the auxiliaries in the engine room would run on steam too, like generators and pumps and so forth. He would cut the steam down on the auxiliaries so that the main engines would have it, and they would turn faster. That's the way he used to gain speed, and he could really get it out of it. And I would say that the Pocahontas, well, when she had 3 boilers, run on 3 boilers, oh, she beat anything. But like I said before, she only worked on 2. But I'd say she was about as fast as either one of them.
How fast would they go?
Well, beat at 14 knots.
14, maybe 15.
Yeah.
Full bore or something?
Yeah, the Accomack was fast too. She was twin screw diesel, and she was fast.
As long as you keep her in deep water,
Yeah.
so you can steer her.
Yeah.
You get in shoal water, she get drawing down, she'd go where she got ready to go. You'd have slower engines up.
Accomack would steer the best when you stop the engines and let her coast. That's when she would steer the best, answer to her rudder best.
It's something that I always thought a lot about, how they figured the horsepower of those steam engines. Because you could be backing or running full ahead for however long. Come from full ahead to stop to full astern, she'd turn just as fast as she would any other time. I mean, it was like no drag on them. It wasn't like if she's turning, well, say 350, that when you went from full ahead to full astern, that you could only get 300 turns. She'd turn it all, whatever our max was. And I've often wondered if those engines were underestimated.
Steam always seemed to be more powerful from everything you read.
I had my favorite engineers down in the engine room answering the throttles. And there was 3 down there that could answer. My hand would hardly get away from the telegraph handle before he'd answer it. Raymond Hutchinson, Charlie Pointer, and Edwin Evans. They were the 3 of the fastest answering the throttles. And they almost got me in trouble one time because I've been used to that efficiency, you know, on the Pocahontas. And I went captain on the Princess Anne one time. They had an engineer on there, oh man. Somebody told him he was an engineer one time and he believed it.
Potsy Davis.
I ain't gonna call no names. He was a good fella. He was a good fella.
He
He
was.
just a poor engineer.
He was just slow.
And going into Little Creek, my first trip on that Princess Anne, I'd been used to Raymond Hutchinson being down there. And I go in, I said, told the wheelman, I said, back her half. And nothing happened. I turned around, I said, I said, back her full. Back her full. After a while, I could feel a little bit of tremble. I said, good God, who's that down there? And I said, ring them back, ring them back. So when you wanted more, you know, you just ring them, lift a handle up and ring them back. And when we got to that dock, I went down the engine room. I wanted to know, see who it was answering the throttles. And I saw, and I told him, I said, don't do that to me anymore. That was about the worst I think I'd ever seen. But them three, Raymond Hudson and Charlie Pointer. Now Charlie Pointer they were all three good engineers. Charlie Pointer was port captain for a while, but he passed away at a young age too. But he was a good engineer.
After the three steamers were lengthened, how was their handling characteristics changed after they added the mid-bodies to them?
Well, I tell you, well, we got used to them, and I thought they handled very well. The steamboats, they didn't lengthen the other one, just the three of steam. And I thought they handled very well.
If anything, I think they've done better, because that Delmarva, she even seemed like she turned quicker.
Yeah, she was.
She was slow turning.
Yeah, she was that.
But she'd turn in a wind where the others wouldn't.
Her center of what's it?
Center of gravity?
Pivoting point. Pivoting point. The Delmarva's pivoting point was way forward. And you had to look at her stern to see if she was turning at all, you know. And the Pocahontas and the Princess Anne, their pivoting point was aft a little bit, aft about midship.
Which vessel do you consider was the worst in heavy seas?
I don't know.
The three steamboats was about the same. The Northampton in the rough northwest winds, she would bend. Oh yeah, you could feel her bend in the middle. And I used to think, and you know, that she's going to wring herself in two one of these days doing that. But you could feel her moving, you know, up and down,
Right.
bending. The others didn't do that. They were stiff. Now, in a heavy winds, or when they were rolling, the Pocahontas had a very high center of gravity. She would roll real slow, real slow. She'd go over, and then she'd go over some more, and then she'd come back real slow. Yeah. The Delmarva was real fast. Northampton was real fast. They were stiff. They roll real fast.
But if you in heavy seas, you wouldn't want to be on the Northampton particularly.
No, not particularly. She's
Well,
miserable to be on.
Wind sea tore them LSTs up, made them roll a lot quicker and more than the steamboats. Because the steamboats, they had more weight. They had their center of buoyancy and whatever. Now, in ground swells, the steamboats would roll deeper than what the diesels would. Don't you think?
Yeah.
The steamboats actually had less beam on the waterline than the LSTs.
Right. Because they were more or less flat bottom than LSTs.
So your worst boat was the Northampton?
Yes, sir.
And which was the one you prefer in heavy seas?
Myself, I like Princess Anne.
Same with you?
I said Pocahontas. The Delmarva real fast like that. She'd beat you to pieces.
How heavy did the seas have to be before the vehicles start wanting to move around on the deck or something? Or would they move around?
They wouldn't move around. The cars wouldn't move around. Yeah, they would.
You blocked the cars, didn't it? They blocked them.
Yeah, to block them for in front and back. Not in all of them. Every one of them wasn't blocked.
Oh, okay.
But they were close together, and if they moved at all, they would hit the bumpers of the other one. But we never had that problem. They never moved, and they didn't move sideways at all. But like I said before, a truck, yeah, she'd give you applesauce.
So y'all had to tie trucks down if the seas were heavy enough?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tied trucks down, yeah.
I've seen them break in 5/8" lines.
Really?
Really. When I went,
At what point would you try to tie the trucks down? What sea condition?
when you got rolling like 15 degrees or more.
How big a seas is that big?
Well, I don't know what to say. I guess 8 or 10 foot groundswell probably.
Y'all never really stopped running unless it was a hurricane, did you?
Right.
No, he run mostly all weather, except the hurricane. I remember one time they went and tied up in Cape Charles. After that, the ferries had moved down to Kiptopeake. Well, there was a couple of them in Northampton and the Accomack, I think, went into Cape Charles, just a lake there until the storm went over. I don't remember where they were. Well, some of them went to Little Creek, like an Ash Wednesday storm.
Well, I was on the Princess Anne during that storm. That was the roughest. That Ash Wednesday storm was the roughest ever I was on the water. Captain Thomas Scott was captain. Winston Budd was first mate. And at the time I was wheelsman. And Bud and I seen the Big D when she
Oh boy.
went over.
Yeah.
And
So, about 60 knots you stopped running? 75?
well,
50? Imagine more than that.
I said 60, guessing.
I would say at
I heard
least that.
60 somewhere before, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
unless it was a hurricane, you never thought about the wind. You just thought about making your schedule.
Did the big winds kind of slow your schedule down a little bit? Did you run behind? When the wind was-
You got behind some from tacking, like Bill said. You run off, keep from rolling so deep.
How was the crew organized? As far as hours, did y'all stay on there for a week, or did you stay on there 8 hours, or how did y'all operate?
You mean on while we were on duty?
Yeah.
We would work in the pilot house and in the engine room. We'd work 6 hours on, 6 hours off. But the guys on deck would work all day and stay up all night and sleep all night. They didn't work 6 hours.
They were 12.
Yeah. The guys on deck worked 4 days on and 4 days off. Everybody else worked 2 on and 2 off. And it worked good for them because a lot of them had another job off, working on the water, crabbing and fishing,
Y'all worked 2 on and 2 off?
Yeah. Licensed personnel. And also the engine.
Does that count the, I don't know, stewards and the restaurant people, all that?
I
All
think
day, 4 on and off?
they worked 2 on and 2 off, I think.
Right.
How many crew did it take to man a ferry?
Good land. 30 some, I think, including the steward's crew.
You had a captain, first mate, second mate, 2 quartermasters, boatswain, 8 ABs, and 2 ordinaries. That was your deck department.
How long could y'all run without refueling?
Every time we got into Little Creek, they'd hook that oil hose up. They had a hose there that they could hook that up anytime they wanted. And I don't know if they did that every time that we came in there, but they watched it very close.
Did that come off the Kiptopeake?
No, just Little Creek.
Little Creek. He means the tanker Kiptopeake.
Oh, you mean the tanker Kiptopeake?
Did that fuel the boats? Or did that fuel a tank on shore?
She replenished the tanks on the shore.
Okay.
And we'd suck from the tanks, Chesapeake Bay, through the C&D Canal, and on down the Delaware River and Bay to Cape May, and we were just about 24 hours, and we didn't take no fuel or water anywhere. So I don't really know how long.
Was there speed much difference between unloaded and loaded?
No. You wouldn't notice no difference.
Did was there a special fueling crew, or was the crew on the boat, engineering department, do that?
Engineering part.
That reminds me of another time that happened, another migratory labor. He came down there, the gangway, passenger gangway in Little Creek, and the boat was getting ready to back out. And he didn't have time to step aboard to norm the gangway because the gangway was closed. He threw his suitcase through the oil door, and that opened up and all that's clothes landed in that grease, and then he jumped on himself.
How did the bridge communicate with the deckhands when it was time to leave, when to pull the bridge up and untie the vessel? How did y'all communicate?
Well, when we landed to the dock and we got all loaded, and come time to go, we blow the whistle. And then we'd have a speaking tube. That the mate, and that would be a signal for him to, when we blow the whistle, to raise the bridge, bridge tunnel to raise the bridge, and to let go the headlines in Little Creek. And then he would call on the speaking tube, all gone forward, and the gates closed. And then that was it. They'd be back out. And in Kiptopeake, it was the same thing. You'd blow the whistle, and they would, bridge tender would raise the bridge and let go to 2 stern lines. And then he would call on speaking tube, all going aft, the gates closed. Stanley Lewis used to say, all closed aft and the gates gone.
He must have been a popular captain.
Yeah, he was a good, I used to love to work with him.
He was the first guy I ever sailed as mate with.
You could laugh to hold, he was a practical joker.
All right, did y'all ever miss the dock coming in or going out or something, whatever?
I remember one time on the Delmarva, Hub Summers was first mate, I was captain. And the northwest wind blowing, it was full moon, and that ebb tide was a-flying, coming through the ships. We got ready to dock. The tide and wind was both still on her port side, and she wouldn't twin screw. She wouldn't twin screw. So I backed her up and come ahead on her and straightened her out and then backed her into the dock. And it lucked out, as it happened, it worked out good, you know. Because there was a big bunch of pilots, used to call it Captain George's pilots, I think. And that was the keeper from going off too far, you know, when she landed the dock. So I shot her ahead, you know, and then backed her between that bunch of pilots and the dock. And it worked out good. But I was to Delmarva, probably the Pocahontas would have worked around it, would have worked in there.
What about you?
Well, I've never got in a situation that, like Bill was telling you, but at times you're carrying more headway than what you really should be, and you might run by.
Did you all always come in through the center of the ships, or did you go around the back side of them to get
Through the center.
That looks like a right short looking at it, from pictures I've seen, it was like
I
a right
was
sharp
with
turn.
one captain, and I can't think who he was. But, you know, you got the ships laid here, and you come in through this hole. There's ships down here, the south end, by the fish traps. We come in that way. It was in a heavy nor'wester. Come around, come up past the dock, and he backed her right in number 2 bridge.
That's the one that's perpendicular to
Right.
the shore.
Mm-hmm. And that was perfect.
Did you all ever have any problems when crossing the Baltimore or the Thermal Shoals Channel with incoming or outgoing vessels?
That you had to watch close. When we watched if a ship was coming or going, we always give way to them, whether we had the right of way or them. We always let them have the right of way, always.
Unless you had a good lead on them.
Yeah. And we take a bearing on them, see if we could have room enough to, or speed enough to get ahead of them, you know. But
Did y'all use the radios for communication back then?
no.
You didn't have it. Well, you had a big AM set.
Yeah.
2738, 2182.
Did they have a navigation channel on those?
You didn't have no FM.
Channel 13.
Channel
Yeah.
13 or whatever. You didn't have it.
I was wondering about that.
I've wanted that a many a time.
I'm sure.
And I used it a lot of time at Curtis Bay.
And you probably wish the motor yachts had them.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of. The vessels don't have a collision. You talked about the Northampton and Accomack.
Yeah.
Was there any other ones besides the one in Little Creek?
None that I know of.
Delmarva and that naval vessel got together in a fog.
How was your relationship with Mr. William Brooks?
Mr. Brooks, he was a nice guy. He was the head of the steward department.
Did he keep you fed?
Yeah, pretty much.
Did you all have to supply your own meals, or did the company supply the meals?
Company.
Mr. Brooks was my neighbor
Is that right?
growing up, yeah.
He was a good fellow.
Well, he used to take a shipyard, like a boat's been in for overhaul, and got us on another boat. So, comes the day, got to take the crew back to the boat to bring her on down from the shipyard. One thing I can remember about him, his foot on the accelerator of the car. Then he takes his foot off. He'd coast probably from here to that fence and he'd hit her again. Off and on. Never quit. First he was set back in the seat.
Did y'all eat up top or down below or
Below deck.
in the restaurant?
Below the coat.
On the LSTs, you ate topside.
Yeah.
But at the Hunters, Princess Anne, and Delmarva, you went below the car deck. And the officers had a mess hall, and the unlicensed people had a mess hall,
And the color had a mess on
and
it.
the colors had a mess hall. They were separated.
I did see on the builder's drawings when the ferries were segregated, at segregated spaces. Did they ever stop that while the ferries were still running?
Yeah.
No, not in Virginia. No,
They did not?
but they did when they moved up to Delaware. You never saw a change in Virginia, did you?
I don't think so.
No.
Really.
They were all segregated last day.
Those wheels went on Pocahontas a number of times when the crew would come up, or even a passenger would come up on the bridge wing and holler in the door. It's a black man or a black woman in the dance hall, or Captain Ernest Ewell, he couldn't get to the wheel fast enough. Go down there and tell him to get back there where he belongs.
No, really?
Oh, yeah.
I remember one time, I was wheelsman, I think. Cecil Wessels was captain on Delmarva. And the stewardess, she was a black lady, Mattie Hilliard.
And
she came up to pilot house one time, and she was well liked by everybody. And she looked out on the foredeck and saw a black man stand out there. She says, Captain, said, what's that black man doing out there? Says, he knows very well he ain't supposed to be out there. It's just white people. She send somebody down there to run him back where he belongs. So we just laughed, you know, funny. She's black herself, you know.
Well, would y'all take any action on that?
No, just no.
If something bad happened on there, who would take action to somebody being rowdy or something like that?
Well, the captain would send somebody down, just like there was Pocahontas. Ralph Crum was captain, I think. No, I'm not sure. It might have been Captain Ewell. I was mate. And the gentleman passed away, died down in the dining room. And Captain Ewell sent me down to take care of it. But when I got down there was a lady that was a nurse. She was already tending to him, you know, when he had passed away. I always remember his name, James Arthur Bradbury, elderly gentleman.
Did you ever think a bridge would be replacing your job?
No, sir. I never thought a bridge would take our job, no.
Me either. I thought the furs would always run it, you know. So,
and every day you could stand there, once they got started, you could see coming, jumping a little closer.
You see your job going away.
Going away.
When did you find out about when did the rumors start going that they're going to build a bridge across there?
Well, actually, the first me knowing about it or hearing about it is when it was brought up that they were going to form a commission to put out bids and get things started. And a gentleman here on the Eastern Shore, Lucius Gellin, he was the chairman of the commission. Once it got started, it rolled on.
What were the working conditions like for the VSC as far as employees?
they weren't bad. The boats were, they were, none of them were air conditioned. In the summertime, it got pretty hot. But as far as the working conditions, I've heard of worse places.
Did it change any when you went to work for the Chesapeake Bay Ferry District?
Same thing.
How many passengers get seasick a lot on there? I imagine quite a few.
Mm-hmm. I've been seasick myself.
Really?
A number of times, yeah. I used to get seasick a lot when I was down in Tampa, going across the Gulf of Mexico.